Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. So here's a video to go along with today's lesson. And in today's lesson what we did was we applied what we learned about functions from last class and how do we actually integrate them and use them in a full program. So we came back to our guessing game program that we've been making, and we are going to turn a couple of these things into functions in order to clean it up, make it a little bit more readable, as well as allow us to reuse code. Also, I need to talk a little bit about the assignments because there was an issue with both of them that I need to address. Also, I promised that I was going to show you my Steam library, so we're going to do that at the end. So, let's get started. First function I want to do is I want to do some sort of response function. Because right now we're just telling them if they guessed correctly or not, and it makes it really hard to guess, especially just a number between 1 and 10 is already really tough to do. When 1 and 30, it's basically impossible. So, what we're going to do is we're going to make a response function that is going to give the player some idea of where they should be guessing next time. And we're going to integrate it right here. So, we're going to go up to the top, and we always make our functions at the very top. So, we always import first. Sometimes you define functions and then initiate parameters. Sometimes you do it the other way around. But always import first, initiate variables and stuff, and declare all of your parameters. Your main code is always pretty much at the bottom of your code. So, we're going to make a new function. So we're going to define a new function called response. And we need to give it a parameter. And the parameter that I'm going to use, I'm just going to call it diff for difference. And how this is going to be defined is diff is going to equal the correct number minus the number that they guessed. Alright, so this is going to be how I decide what response to give them by looking at the difference between the correct number and the number that they guessed. So, first of all, we want to check if they guessed correctly, and if they guessed correctly, that means that the difference between the two numbers would be 0, because these two would be equal. And so I'm going to say if diff equals 0, we're just going to return true. Because what this function is going to do is it's going to tell us, after it's done its job of giving a response to the user, it's going to tell us whether or not they guessed correctly or not. So this is where they guessed correctly, and so we're returning true. We could just use this in order to check whether it returned false, and we could do that a whole lot easier, but this is going to do a little bit more. It's also going to print some stuff, and so that's why I'm not going to just return diff equals 0. I could do that if all I wanted was the boolean. And if all I wanted was the boolean, I probably wouldn't even make a function for it. So, we're going to do elif diff is greater than 0. So if it is a positive difference, and if this is a positive number, this means that the number is greater than their guess. So if the difference is positive, the number is greater than the guess, and so they should guess higher, which is what we're going to tell them to do. We're going to print guess higher, just like that. And finally, if it's not equal to, and it's not greater than, then it must be less than, meaning the difference is negative, and so they should be guessing lower because their guess is greater than the number. So else, we're just going to print guess lower, and finally, if they guessed correctly, we've already exited the function here, so if we've gone past that, we know that they didn't guess correctly. And if they didn't guess correctly, we need to return false. Alright? So, that's our first function. We're going to get rid of this because we don't actually want that there. We just needed that there so that I could show you what this difference was and how we organize things here. But now we need to call the function, and we're going to call it right here. So rather than say number equals guess, I'm going to say response, call my function, and I'm going to pass it as a parameter, number minus guess. Right? So I need to put in capital R because I named it capital R. response, like that. And I'm giving it, for its parameter, is number minus guess, just like I said. And so if it returns true, it's going to trigger this section, because we're going if true, right? And if it's false, so they didn't guess correctly, it'll do this thing. And now we actually don't really need to have this thing because the response is already giving them a better response. Like if we tell them to guess lower, they know they didn't guess correctly, or if they guess higher, they didn't guess correctly. So let's just get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. Alright, so that is our first function. I'm going to make another function here. The next function I want to do is I want to make a function that's going to handle both of these things. Both getting the difficulty from the user and getting the user guess. Because if you look at them, they do pretty much the same thing. Sure, different context, but if you abstract it, which means sort of take away all of the irrelevant details and all of the irrelevant context, and just look at what is the bare bones thing, what's happening here, they're both asking the user for a number in a particular range. And the only way they're different is the message that they're asking and the range that they're looking for. So, we're not really even doing range checking here, but we're going to do range checking in this function as well. And so the two things that they're different are the message that they give and what the range is. So those are going to be the two parameters that we use for our new function, so that it can work for both here and here. And this is going to allow us to reuse our code. So we're going to define a new function. I'm going to call it getNumber, because it's going to get a number from the user. And like I said, we need two parameters. One is going to be whatever the upper limit is. So I'm going to call it just upper limit. What is the biggest that this number is allowed to be. And the second is the message that we want to show. So I'm just going to give message, like that. And now, what I'm going to do is, well, I'm just going to copy all of this code, cut it out there, and paste it right there. Because this is almost what we want. We're just going to add on to it. I got to remember I need to call that function right here. So rather than displaying that message, we're going to pass the message that we give it as a parameter. And so that does the error checking, but before we return that number, because it's going to return the number after we're done with it, we need to check to make sure it's in the right range. So I'm going to say if, well, the number, well, we should definitely change this. This is just a number, so I'm going to call it num for number. And if that number is both greater than and equal to 1, and it needs to be less than, and the number needs to be less than or equal to the upper limit. So it needs to be between these two numbers, 1 and whatever we say the upper limit is. For the difficulty, it's going to be 3, and then for when we're getting their guess, it'll be, well, upper limit, I guess. Oh, I see. I got a spelling mistake there. So this isn't actually the original code. I quickly wrote the entire game right before this video. So if there's spelling mistakes and stuff, it's because I haven't actually fixed all this code yet. Anyways, so if it's between those two numbers, then it's a good number, and we're just going to return it. So we're going to return that number. And else, I don't really need an else, but we'll do it anyways. We're going to need to print a statement saying that they gave us a number that's not in the correct range. So we're going to say that's not in the correct range. And then we're going to continue for exactly the same reason as we did here. Because we want to go back to the beginning and get a new number because this was not a good number. It's kind of redundant. I didn't actually need it there. But it's nice to do this anyways because it makes the code more robust to future changes. I don't need to refactor or change how things are organized if I want to add more code here. Whereas if I just got rid of that and got rid of that and just printed it, sure, it would work. But if I want to come back, I would then have to reorganize some stuff. So that's why I'm going to do it this way. Also, it helps readability, and the best code is the most readable code. Alright. So we got our get number function. Now we need to call it. And so we need it right here when we got the difficulty. So the difficulty is going to equal, call our get number function. And the first thing we need to give it is the upper limit. And we only want to go up to 3 for the upper limit. And the next thing is we need to give the message. And I forgot what the message was. So I'm going to just repost that. That's the message right there. That is what we want to say to the user when we're getting the number. There we go. So that's going to get our number between 1 and 3. And notice how much space we made in this section. This code used to take up half of that section. Now it's just one line. So that's helping us improve the readability and how much code we can see, or how much of the program we can see in just one screen. Then we're going to do the same thing here. Rather than replacing all right away, I'm just going to say, here, I don't want the diff. What number am I thinking of? This is supposed to be, not diff, this is supposed to be guess equals that thing. But we're going to use our get number function, get number, and this needs to go up to upper limit, and it needs this message. That's the message that we want to display when we're asking for the number. Just like that. And so that now handles all of that stuff. We can delete all of that. We don't need it. Look at that. Now our main game loop has only like this many lines. You can see almost the entire game in one screen. Actually, you could if you didn't have my font so big. So that is now working, I think. So how about we test this, make sure it is in fact working, and I can do a little bit of bug fixing because I haven't actually run this thing yet. So let's call it test. Yeah, we'll replace it, run the thing. Let's test this thing out and see whether or not our error checking and range checking works. So I'm going to say I want the hello difficulty. Nope, doesn't like it. How about 5? It's not in the right range. What about 0? That's also not in the right range. Alright, we'll play ball. We'll give it 1. I'm thinking between a number between 1 and 10. Are you thinking of hello? I'm thinking of hello. Are you thinking of ice cream? I'm thinking of ice cream. Nope. How about 20? No? What about negative a million? No? Alright, what about 5? Ooh. 5, and it's telling me to guess higher. Okay. How about we try, say, 7? Guess even higher. How about 9? I got it! Awesome. So it looks like the code is working. I'm going to say no, I don't want to play again. Goodbye. Excellent. Alright. So, now, the last function I want to do is I want to make a play again function. Because this is kind of just sitting down here on its own. It doesn't really interact with the rest of the code in any way. So it makes sense to just make a function that'll do this. I can call it. And, just make that part of the code that much more condensed. So I'm going to say, call this function play again. This does not need any parameters. And we're just going to return true or false, depending on if they want to play again. So, let's just grab all that code down there. Like that. And we'll paste it right there. So, we're getting their input right here. And what we'll do is here, if they enter that, actually we could do this in one line, or 2 lines. So we're going to get rid of all this. And we're going to actually just return this. I don't need that colon there either. And so it's going to evaluate this Boolean statement. Is this true or false? And it's going to return true or false. So if the input is one of these things, it returns true. And if it's not, it returns false. There we go. We got a play again function. So down here, we're going to say if, and I don't really need to do any continue or something, I just need to handle if they want to quit. So I'm going to say if not play again, I did spell that right? Yes. If not, play again. Then we are going to say goodbye and end the game. So I'm going to print goodbye, and then we are going to break out of this loop here. Quit, and because after that there's nothing, the game ends. Perfect. So let's quickly try it, make sure it works. Let's try 3. Ooh, good. Let's try 15. Is it 22? Damn, I'm pretty good. Let's try play again. What if I say yes? Excellent. Good. Let's go on a little bit easier. Let's do 10. Let's do 15. Let's do 18. No, let's do 178. Nope, not allowed to do 178. Oh, the correct number was 16. Boo. Alright, let's quit. Looks like it's all working. Perfect. And that is the end of the main part of our lesson. So, that is... Last time we took a look at how do you actually work with functions, how do you make them, but we didn't actually look at how do you work with them in context of other things. And so that's what we looked at today. Just how do you integrate functions into your program to improve its readability, allow you to reuse code, and just make it cleaner. Right, so that's pretty clear what it's doing. It's saying, oh, okay, I'm getting a number, and if I really want to know what is going on behind the scenes, I can go up to my getNumber function, and I can see, okay, how is it getting that number? But if I don't really care, I just want to see the large-scale structure of how my code is working, now I can see pretty much the entire main game in one screen, right? There's the beginning of the code in terms of what we're running. That's the end. And so that is what you do for a basic guessing game. Of course, we got our special functions that help us out, but it's pretty readable. I'm going to have a version of this up on D2L probably tomorrow. I'm going to also comment it more because I want you guys to see what good commenting looks like. And now let's move on to the 2 assignment problems that we need to talk about. So, go to the console. So the first one I want to talk about is the error one that has like x++ or something. So I think I said change a line to make this thing print 5, and it looked like something like print something like x equals 4, and then I did something like print x++ or something. And I said fix this error, and well, guess what? Plus plus doesn't actually exist in Python. So sometimes I forget that. I've been working with a bunch of different programming languages recently, so you can't do x++. That's an error. What you can do is x plus equals 1. That's equivalent to the same thing. So if I just see x now, it's now 5. It added 1 to it. So that's what I was intending there, but it didn't work. So if you didn't get it, don't worry about it. If you did some hacky way around it, that's fine by me too. The second thing I needed to talk about was the capitalization function for the second assignment. So you need to figure out whether or not a specific string inputted is capitalized or not. And what I didn't quite tell you that is sort of important, it might be a way to do it without it, but the way that I recommend do it is just look at the first letter of that string and check whether or not it's capitalized. And so that takes 2 different things. First, how do you access the first letter of a string? So I'm going to make a new string, say word equals hello. And then if I want to just get that first letter, the H, I do it like this. I say word, and I put square brackets. Square brackets are used all the time for arrays, and strings are actually a kind of array. So I want to get inside of here, inside the square brackets, I put down the number which represents which position of letter I want. So we're going to see a lot more of this pretty soon, but for now, this will help you with the current assignment. And since computers always start counting from 0, including our assignments, that means if we want to get the first letter, we need to put 0 in here. So if I hit enter, it gives me the letter H. And so that is how I can access just the first letter in a string. Because if I care about a string being capitalized or not, I only actually care about the first letter. I don't care about the rest of it, right? So that's how you get the first letter. And then how do you check if it's capitalized? Well, you do it like this. You can say word. If you look at the documentation that I gave a link to, this is in there. But you do is upper, like that. Not I supper. I always read it as I supper, but it's is upper. And what this does is it returns true if that string is all capitalized, and it returns false if it's not. So this is now, we actually only care about that first letter, so it's going to tell me whether or not that first letter is capitalized or not. And it says no, it's not. I could do the same thing, but with a capitalized word. Say hello, like that, and it'll say true because that H is capitalized. And this will also work with stuff that is not actually letters. A couple people were using approaches that only work if they were letters. So, but what if I put a bunch of question marks? No, a question mark is not a capital letter. What if I put in numbers? Nope, number 1 is not a capital letter. So, that is how I would do that particular problem. First, get the first letter of that string, and then call the is upper method for strings in order to check whether or not it's uppercase or not. Alright? So those are the 2 assignment problems that I needed to talk about. Remember that the second assignment with the functions has a soft dead due date of Friday, so do your best to try to get them in by then. If you're running a little bit late, that's okay. And now, I said that I was going to show you what my Steam library looks like, so let's do that. So here's Steam, and I guess I'll just slowly scroll down my library here. You can see I don't got pretty much anything installed, but I don't think I could get a hard drive or even an array of hard drives that would store all of this. So I'll just scroll down, see what you see, if anything you like. I like to play a lot of creative building sort of games, so you can see, RimWorld and Scrap Mechanic and Factorio. I like those games a lot. Minecraft, but Minecraft's not on Steam. I actually got Minecraft for like $8 because I bought it back when it was a brand new game. Yeah, so, my open world adventure games, I got some puzzle games, I got some RPG story type games, I got some strategy games. I'm really looking forward to Warhammer 3. That's going to be an awesome game. And then all the stuff that I just haven't got around to organizing yet. So, that's all the games in my Steam library, and that's pretty much most of my games. I do have some that are not on Steam, but yeah. I promised I was going to show it to you guys, so there it is. Anyways, I hope that you have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, because I don't see you guys again until Monday. And yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.